Okay, you're welcome. This is the chapter 3 of our online website design tutorial course. And in this course, we're going to be talking about designing your visuals with Coreldraw and Photoshop. In this brief introduction, we'll do some general introduction to Coreldraw, Photoshop, and wireframing. Coreldraw, as we recall, is the designer's favorite in this part of the world. About 98% of designers in this part of the world use Coreldraw. Either they are commercial designers, they do designs for commercial, for private use, for web design, or for graphic design. I'm sorry about that. And Coreldraw in this part of the world is a software that a lot of people are conversant with, and as we earlier said in our earlier videos in the introduction of this course, we discussed why the justifications for us using Coreldraw for our package. So right now we will talk about a general introduction to Coreldraw and Photoshop and wireframing. Primarily Coreldraw, as we can see here now, looking at the framework here. This is the Coreldraw framework. If we say F2 and we zoom to this end here, we're seeing the typical home page of wireframe here on screen here. And Coreldraw was developed by Corel Corporation in Ottawa, Canada in 1989. That's about 24 years ago. That was actually in January 1989, about 24 years ago. And Coreldraw initial release earlier, as I listened, and the package or the software type is a vector graphics editor. Here it is important that we explain a little bit about what vectors are, and in explaining vectors we'll also consider what bitmaps are, or rasters as other people call it. Now a vector in simple terms, like a carrier, one-dimensional, but in graphic terms it deals with geometric primitives that involves lines, points, curves, and shapes or polygons in constituting graphic elements in a graphic design package. And that is what it basically denotes. Mathematical expressions to represent image in computer graphics. They are called scalable elements that don't lose definition on magnification. For instance, okay, let's just do a little demonstration here, because no, sorry, let's do this. Now you can see on screen here. For instance, if we take this text out of this framework here and look at this text, if we say Control Q automatically converts it to curves. If we say Control F2 on your screen, you see the cursor automatically changes to a magnification tool, and you zoom it. And if you say F4 again, sorry, I'm using the screen there, F3, and you place it somewhere around on the top there, just watch your screen, and we zoom it. Now this is an example of a vector graphic element on screen here that you're seeing. You see body, background. If you say F2 and you zoom in again with F2, you can see the fineness around the elements. The element, they don't lose definition, they don't lose details on magnification. That is one of the very interesting thing about vectors on magnification. No matter how you increase the size of your vector elements, but very importantly, ensure that your size increase is in the right proportions. Don't distort images by increasing them lengthwise or height-wise. That's against the practice. Okay, let's go back to our screen now, and we say F3 there, and we do this. Sorry, do this. We go back here and we check all this. So that's it about that. Okay, let's delete now and don't say F4. F4 takes us back to, it fits the screen, fits it back to the screen. Okay, so now let's move on now. Now we have explained what a vector element is. Now in our second thing we want to talk about, recall that I said that we cannot explain vectors, we cannot isolate vectors and explain them like that without looking at what bitmaps or rasters are. So vectors, you will understand, the beauty of a vector element in a graphical design is better understood when you see it in line with a bitmap or an image or a raster, as we call it. It automatically centralizes it on the document framework. Okay, now if we go do F4 now, we'll say F3 again. Let's increase it. Recall that my increasing it, I'm taking it from a particular anchor point. As I increase and I press shift, it increases it in its right proportion. There's no distortion of image in any way. So this is an example of a bitmap or a raster image on our screen. If we say F2 here, you can see now, you can see pixelation. Recall when we increased a vector element, when we increased or magnified the vector element, it didn't lose out on details. But here with a bitmap element or a raster or an image on your graphical package in Coreldraw, as we can see here now that this particular image that we imported here, on magnification or on increase in proportion, recall you increase in proportion, don't increase the lengthwise or height wise. Ensure that you're increasing in the right proportions so that your image remains in the right proportion. But in this case on magnification now, the image is in the right proportion, but it is losing out on information, it is losing out on sharpness, it is losing out on details. So that is just the clear-cut example on screen, practical example of what's the difference between a vector and a bitmap. Okay, let's go back to our screen now. I will say F4. On F4 now, okay, let's select the image and press delete, and we'll say delete, or we'll press F4 again. It fits our image back to our screen. So okay, we're welcome back now. Now since we've explained that, now we're going to look at Photoshop. Also recall that in our website design package, we are using two major graphic packages for design. One, Coreldraw. Recall in our first introduction, we said Coreldraw is a vector graphic editor or software or program or application, whatever name you choose to call it. It still remains a package to handle vectors, and we have seen the practical example of what a vector is on screen. And also we also looked at a bitmap. Now Coreldraw deals with vectors. Now it deals with vector and is a vector graphic editor, edits your graphics on vector primarily. Now in the other part, now when we imported an image on screen, we saw an image on magnification, how we lost out on details and all that. Now the other software that we're going to be dealing with is Photoshop. Photoshop now deals with the bitmap or the raster or the image area of our element on design. Now recall Coreldraw for vector, Photoshop for graphics. Now let's go back to our screen now and launch Photoshop and see how it works. Okay, now this is Photoshop on our screen here. This is the toolbar, this is the navigation tab, the character tab and all that. Okay, let's just open an image. Let's say let's open any image anywhere. Let's say, okay, let's open a couple image here, and okay, now we're talking with this is Photoshop. Now what we have here on screen is Photoshop. Now Photoshop was developed by Adobe Systems, and the initial release was in 1989, 24 years ago, just about the same time that Coreldraw was released into the market for graphic designers and web designers and people that need a software package for their design work. And it was designed by Corel, and the Corel Photoshop was rebranded in 2003. That was when Photoshop was rebranded. Formerly we had it as Adobe Photoshop. Now we have it as the Adobe Creative Suite. All around you see it. It's called the CS series. They call the Creative Series Suite. Photoshop was rebranded in that particular year. And then the stable release now is the CS6. The CS6 typically is the 6th version of the Creative Suite from 2003 till date. Now Photoshop is written in C++ and operating system at least Windows XP and with Service Pack 3 or Mac OS. So that means Photoshop runs both on the Windows platform and the Macintosh platform. And it's available in 27 languages, and it's a raster graphics editor. Now the difference is coming into play now. Photoshop is a photo editing software, an image editing software, a raster editing software, or application or a program. So that's very, very important for us to understand now. The very important thing that we want to do next now is to explain with examples what wireframing is. Now let us go back to our Coreldraw software. Now back on screen here, okay, you recall this is a bitmap or a raster image. Okay, let's just minimize. Okay, now back to this is our Coreldraw software. Now we're talking about our online website design course. And the first thing, now this is the third chapter that we're talking about now. In the first and the second chapter, we talked about the prerequisites before coming to this stage. This is more of the design stage. In order, the program, we did a brief explanation on when we did the brief introduction into the course and the preliminary stages before we get to this stage of designing our visuals in Coreldraw and Photoshop. Now here we will be dealing with website wireframing. Here on screen here we can see a typical website wireframed. Wireframing basically are termed computer generated mockup. They could be rough sketches or drawings on white paper or board that represent the skeletal framework of a website. Specifically, it represents the skeletal framework of a website. Now when we look at, let's back to our screen now, we can see all these here now, typically represented different segments and different parts or areas of a typical website home page. Now we're just dealing with the home page here, and here this is the header section, this is the banner section, and this section here is the copy section, here is the footer section. Now with our wire framing in doing a wireframe for our website, it clearly shows us it is used by user experience professionals. They're also called interaction designers. We call interaction because when it comes to website design, when it comes to graphic design, basically the end product of graphic designs are usually printed or hard copied matters. That is the end product of graphic design. But when we come to website design or web related design or careers or professions, we see that they have a website design majorly deals with screen. It's a screen based profession where human relates with elements and interactability between the human and the computer. That is where the word came into play. Graphic user interface. An interface, a system, an exchange where the human can relate with the computer. We can relate with a website specifically for this particular reason. Now, wireframing a website shows the way to arrange elements to accomplish a purpose, a goal, or an objective. It depicts page layout or arrangement of website content, including interface elements and navigational system. It shows the project design functionality, behavior, and priority of content within a website framework. With wireframing, thinking becomes tangible. Your creative thought process becomes tangible, becomes from it leaves the abstract realm and it comes to the realm of reality, the realm where people can see physically what you're about to do. So, and recall when we're defining wireframe, we say it could be rough sketches, it could be on paper, it could also be done with a software on your computer, as we are showing you clearly here now that we have done our wireframing here in Coreldraw, showing us our header section. As you can see, let's get back to our screen here. As you can see, here is the header section of our wireframe. Our wireframe here shows us the a typical homepage wireframed design of our website, specifically the homepage. Now, in this angle here, if we say F2 and we zoom to this angle here, we can see background. The black here represents the background. Naturally, it's not necessary that it has to be a black background, except if the client insists, or for any reason at all, if the client's corporate colors or brand color goes in line with that particular color, then you can use black for them as their background. But basically, this black background here just shows you positioning, where we plan to position the background of this particular website. And on this header section, let's get back to our screen here now. On this particular header section, it shows you the header section. The header section basically shows you where okay, let's go back now and delete this. Okay, if we take this, we delete that. I'll take this, we delete that. Now on our header section, press F2 there, we can see it. So on our header section here, we can see a clear-cut apportionment of different where we plan to put our different elements. On this particular section around here, if I say F2 again, in this particular section here we plan to put our logo. And on this particular section here, we'll say F2 again, we zoom to this angle, we'll say social website icons and links. This is where we plan to put our Facebook icon, our Twitter icon, our YouTube icon, LinkedIn icon, and the likes, like that. And in this particular section also, here we have the navigation menu. On this particular section here, if we say F4. Now on this particular section of our website wireframe, on this particular section here, we see that your most important USB comes here in this banner section. The banner section is very, very important. The banner section seeks to ask you, what is the most important thing concerning your website? What is the most important thing concerning your service or your product that you want to project, or that you want to present, or that you're planning to sell, or that you're planning to show to the public? What is your unique selling proposition? There must be one particular thing that's going to sell you. According in SEO principles, or search engine optimization principle, it is called your keyword. What is that one keyword that you have researched on that is your major cash cow? This is what we advise most clients to put on their banner section. And also their banner section could also be having, yes, naturally some companies have more than one or two services or products that they offer. On the banner section, we could have it fading in or fading out. The banner section also could be a section that is apportioned for flash elements, where the images will be fading in and fading out, and reflecting the different products or services. Okay, let's come down now to the copy section. Now this is the copy section. The copy section shows you the different highlights, the different important highlights of what you want to project on your home page. Your home page is more like the cover of your magazine, the cover of your book, the cover of your newspaper, or the cover or the front view of your house. What do you want to show in your window? When people come for window shopping, what is the first thing that they want to see that's going to attract them to come in? This is what we call the copy section. The copy section basically are very important things on the inside, on the inner pages or the inside pages of your that you want to reflect on your home page, and that you want your target audience or your visitors coming to your website in the first time to see very important things that you see that you have in stock for them. So in this copy section is where you reflect those particular things. And if we go back to F4 now, and when we come down here, this last section here is called the footer section. Basically the footer section is just the final section of your of the website, that sometimes it carries it could be policies, showing you the policies of the website. It could also show who designed the website and who is powering the website. Those are very, very important things that we need to know about our third video chapter here, where we design where we're going to be designing our visuals with Coreldraw and Photoshop. And so now we have done a brief introduction into Coreldraw and Photoshop and wireframing. In the next video, we're going to be dealing with real-time designing of our home page. Now recall that this is just a wireframe. This is a wireframe. Recall is a rough sketch, is a skeletal framework, a foundation that shows the different placements of different elements of where your images, your logo, your navigation menu will be, and other things that are going to make up your typical home page. Those are very, very important things. And in subsequent inner pages also, let's also look at our wireframe of our inner pages. Now in the inner pages here, we've removed quite a lot of things, and the inner pages here, now let's get back to screen here and see. You see now what changes now majorly is just the inclusion of the content section and the sidebar. Now if we go to page 3 here, now the page 3 here shows us a typical blog template. Recall, wireframing shows you primarily in this exercise that we are working on, shows us a basic layout, a basic framework, a skeletal framework, a basic fundamental foundation of what we plan to build upon. So you could liken wireframing to be your basic foundation upon which you're going to build upon, or you're going to build your website. The home page, as I said, could also be likened to your magazine front page cover, your newspaper front page cover, or your book front page cover. And then we also looked at wireframing the inner pages, how we want the inner pages to look like, and we said here that the only difference is the inclusion of the content section and the sidebar. In some other pages, you could choose not to include the sidebar and design it however you would, but for this particular exercise, where our inner pages is going to include our contents on the left and a sidebar on the right. Now in the third wireframing here, as we can see here on screen, is the typical blog template. For this particular exercise, for this particular tutorial, we're also going to include a WordPress blog to the site that we're going to build. So we're going to learn, that is the reason why we did a wireframe, a template, more like if a wireframe could also be likened to a template, a framework, a skeletal framework, a basic foundation upon which you build your design upon. And so here we have it. We have here also, we're going to include a particular image as we discussed earlier from our home page, probably fading in and fading out. And here also the very basic and fundamental thing about a blog, now specifically a WordPress blog, is that a WordPress blog in the theme section has 4 basic structure elements, which is the header section, the sidebar, the content area, and the footer section. With our template workout, with our template wireframe work here, we can see that we have shown where different elements and the different section will be placed. So thank you very much for this section. In our subsequent video, we're going to be dealing with setting up. We're going to be doing the main thing, designing. We're going to be setting up our working environment. We're going to be looking at font sizes, not in pixels, not in points, I mean in pixels, web safe colors, optimizing our images, icons, graphic elements in PNGs and in GIFs and in JPEGs. In our next session, we're going to design the home page proper. We're going to design our inner page proper. We're going to design our blog template. So join me. Thank you very much. Bless you.